Here at Central Sand, we have 4 centrifuges located in the Solids Conditioning Building, often referred to as the SCB. These centrifuges typically operate 2 at a time and are used to dewater sludge, which is a mixture of primary sludge and toise from our DAF units. The sludge is pumped to a sludge blending tank where it is mixed and then pumped to an online centrifuge for dewatering and eventual incineration. One of the main functions of the centrifuge operator is to ensure these machines are operating properly and efficiently. In this video, we will briefly cover one of the most critical duties the operator performs in making sure the centrifuges are doing their job. Twice a shift, or more if needed, the operator will perform a task known as a cook-off. A cook-off is the way we determine the percent total solids in your centrate, cake, and raw feed. It is also how we determine the total amount of dry solids in pounds per hour being fed to the furnace. Here, we will briefly explain and demonstrate how a centrifuge cook-off is performed. The second floor operator has a workstation in which the cook-offs are performed that includes all the material needed to perform the task. These items include gloves, sample pads, a scale, a pH meter and probe, a small sample plunger, a bottle of DI water, a microwave, a sink, and paper towels. The operator begins by putting on their PPE to avoid skin and eyes from coming in contact with the materials they are testing. Some operators prefer to prepare their workstation prior to grabbing their samples. Others will wait until after to get things started. This is simply a matter of preference. Now you will begin by grabbing the following samples from each centrifuge, as you will see demonstrated next. The sample bottles and sample sink is located between centrifuge cake hoppers 1 and 3. These samples will include centrate from each centrifuge in operation, cake from each centrifuge in operation, and a raw feed sample. Once you've grabbed your samples and brought them back to your workstation, the first thing you should do is clean off the pH probe using the bottle of DI water and place the pH probe in your raw feed sample. pH plays a critical role in centrifuge operation, so it is vital you make sure your pH is in range. There will be more on pH control, and centrifuge operation in other videos. For now, we will simply focus on performing a centrifuge cook-off. You will now label your sample pads on which you will apply your samples. You can mark them any way you choose as long as you can decipher which sample is which. The process for weighing the samples is the same for all samples, the only difference being the buttons you press and the number of pads you'll use for each sample. For example, while you may use 2 sample pads for a cake sample, you will use 3 pads for a centrate sample as to not have the sample leak through onto the scale. Let's use centrate as our example to demonstrate a proper cook-off. First, zero out the scale and place the sample pads on the scale. Then press centrifuge, enter, centrate, and tare. Now your sample pad is tared and ready for your sample to be applied. Now, apply your centrate sample on the pad using the sample plunger. Be sure to have enough sample on the pad to ensure an accurate final weight. Anywhere from 4 to 6 grams is usually enough. Once the sample is applied, place the top pad back on the sample and press initial weight. After performing this task for all 5 samples, you will place all sample pads in the microwave for approximately 5 minutes. Once the 5 minutes is up, it is critical that you give the samples time to cool, as any heat coming off the pads can alter your final weight. When the samples are cooled, you will take the sample pad, place the sample on the scale, repeat the process used to tare the sample pad, that being zero out the scale, press centrifuge, enter, and centrate. Now the only difference will be, instead of pressing tare, you will press final weight and then calculate. The number shown on the scale is the final weight of your sample, which again represents the percent total solids in your sample and is the number you will use in your formula to determine the pounds of dry cake being fed to the furnace per hour. This concludes your brief look into how to perform a centrifuge cook-off. You will go through much more extensive training with your assigned mentor once in the field and operating on the second floor of the SCB. This video was meant to give you a general idea of what a cook-off is and the purpose it serves in both centrifuge and furnace operation. Cook-offs are a crucial part of your second floor duties, so, as always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And best of luck in your continued operator training.